Hey Simonics, what's up? This is Simon from the Ionic Academy, back with a new quick win on protecting your Ionic application. So I've in the past worked with clients that needed to protect their app when the user was closing the app or just pausing the app by making it to the background. So we will implement a simple mechanism to protect our app once the app goes to sleep, and also in general implement a login page that we can trigger at any time, which will then also use Fingerprint or Face ID depending on what the device has to offer. So let's do this. I've already started my Ionic app, like always, a blank application. I also added one page, which is a login page that we will implement, and then I installed the Fingerprint plugin. Actually, it uses under the hood this Cordova plugin. I think this stands for all-in-one. So this will a single interface for accessing fingerprint APIs on both Android and iOS, and now also with Face ID on iPhone 10. Cool. So go ahead, install the npm package and also add the Cordova plugin for the fingerprint. You can also add the variable for the Face ID usage description. I think iOS requires this, so go ahead and pass this as well. Now, once you're done with this, you can move over to the app module, because like always, we have to import our fingerprint all-in-one from add Ionic native fingerprint ngx. And of course, this one goes to the array of providers. Now, because we want to display our login page as a modal as well, we also need to make it available to our application. So we can simply put our login page module, and that's, don't we have a login page? I guess we don't have a login page. No problem, let's just generate it. We need to put that login page into our imports if we want to use a specific page as a modal. So therefore, go ahead, login page module. Yes, now the import is working, and there we go. So make sure you got the import right and add it to the array of imports. The ngx Ionic native package goes to the providers. I also added a little lock icon to the assets just for your information. Just pick whatever you want if you want to try it out yourself. And then we can also move over to our app routing because we want to make the initial page the login page. So let's make the redirect from the empty page to the login. We could also use the new Angular 8 syntax, but that's basically no difference in here at all. Now we come to a bit more interesting things. So implementing our login page. Actually, that's not really the main focus for this course, so I will just bring in our little snippet. Nothing fancy in here, and in the Ion content, just a row which apparently has the wrong, I'm not sure why. I guess I'm on the wrong page. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Anyhow, in that case, I will bring in another snippet because we used this in the past as well. So this is now the new Angular Ionic 4-way. We got the Ion content, and for the header, we can later add a check if this page is displayed as a modal, because right now we're navigating to the login page. I can simply display the page, and apparently this is also kind of wrong. So I basically completely messed this up. No problem, we can handle that. So right now the app is still on home. Let's go to the empty path, which is the login page. Okay, so we see the lock in the middle, and we also see that we got a login function once we click on the button. So let's implement this login function here in order to make our app not fail. And also I will bring in some CSS, but basically the HTML and CSS we are using is just, I don't know, just not super interesting. This is just to make it look like this. I know you will make your login page like you want to have it, so just use what you want. Or like Academy members can check out the link below the video to our quick win. It is now a private quick win for Ionic Academy members. If you're not yet a member, now's the time to become it. In the login, we now want to use our fingerprint or Face ID. So we're going to implement and inject, first of all, private fingerprint all in one, and then add the according package. We will also need the Angular router, simply because we want to route to a new page once we are logged in. And also we will need the modal controller for a reason that you will see hopefully soon. So for now, let's implement this as this.router navigate by URL to /home, just to make sure our routing works. Because what we want to implement now are two things. First, we want to have a general login on this page. This could also be your password page, whatever, but let's assume it is the fingerprint page. Then we are inside the home page, and in here we want to set a timeout, because sometimes you have requirements that after a specific time when the user is not using your app, you might want also to protect it. You see this in a lot of apps like number 26, or basically all finance related apps that have sensitive user data that you want to protect. So we will implement two mechanisms. Therefore, on the home page, we will also add a little snippet. So for us, we will simply set a timeout to lock the app after, let's say, 2 seconds. So this.lock app. And what happens when we lock the app is we want to not really go back to the login screen, because then you will leave or lose all your history of the application. We want now to display the login as a modal. So we will use it actually in two ways. One way is simply navigating to the login, and the second is using this page as a modal, which works without any problems. So private modal controller, and then to lock our app, we will now call the modal. So const modal wait this.modal controller. Nope, that's not how you type it. Create. And now we can pass some options to our modal. And also we need to make this async if we use await in here. So modal present should follow. Now the modal first of all expects a component to be rendered, which will be our login page. And we're actually really importing it, but not the login page module, simply the login page. And we can do this because we have imported the login page module to our app module in the beginning. So that was the point for this. Now, maybe we already take a look at this. So what happens is we log in. And after 2 seconds, a modal will be shown, but that's not really how a modal should look like. Even on bigger screens, I'm actually not sure. Normally, yeah. So the problem is we can still hit the background to dismiss the modal, which is definitely not good if you want to make your app secure. And it's not really looking that cool yet, especially on a small application. So a few things. First of all, we set backdrop dismiss to false, which means if you press the background, you will still be in the modal. Second, we will add a special CSS class. Let's call this login modal. And this CSS class needs to be actually set in the global as CSS, because the modal always lives above our application, and therefore putting the styling into the homepage would have no effect on the modal. So go to the global and put in login modal just to make it a bit smaller. All right, now let's see how this looks in action. 2 seconds, and there's the modal. Now it's already a bit smaller, and we can't go back into our app by simply clicking on the background. Another problem is now that we perhaps don't want to have the status bar or the top bar if it's a modal, and also if we now click on it, actually nothing really happens in here because we haven't implemented the function. No, we have it actually. But what we can do as well is pass some component properties, and in here define like is modal true. And then we can access this value in the login page if it is a modal, and actually understand that we are now a modal. And we do this by saying add input is modal, and this will be a boolean. And now we can use isModal in here. Actually, we might be able to lock it. I am modal, this dot isModal. And in our view, we will now check and only display the header if we're not a modal. So let's try again to move to the login page. Just like before, we move to the inside. After 2 seconds, we see the modal and we are in here. Now also the routing in here is not really working and we need to fix this in the login page. So if this dot is modal, we will call the modal controller dismiss. And only in the other case we will do our routing. Now I show you all of this without the fingerprint so we can see the preview and behavior on the browser because that really makes things a bit easier. So login page uses the router, modal coming up uses the dismiss. Okay, now we got this in place and we can, I think, move forward to really using the fingerprint method in the login page. So this dot fingerprint all in one and simply calling the only method is available or show. And we will opt in for show right now. So to show, you can pass a few parameters now. Most of them are not really mandatory. And then you will get back something and can work with this. And this is the place where now our logic goes into. And into show, we can put a few things. I will just bring them in. Client ID is actually needed for Android. The client secret can be a random string, also needed for Android. And these are localized fallback titles, which are only used on iOS. Otherwise, iOS would use this client ID. So just experiment a bit with these parameters to match your style. And then we only hit the then block if we're authenticated. Otherwise, we get into a little error block or into a catch block. So we can just log out the error there. Okay, now the login is coming up. It is coming up after 2 seconds. And there's one more thing we wanted to add, and that is actually if your app goes to the background. So the user is just changing app to WhatsApp, and we want to catch that event and make sure that the app is also locked if we ever leave the app. And we should do this at the top level of our app inside of the app component. So we can go into this and use our platform and subscribe either to the pause event, which is emits when the, I think my head is covering this, when the native platform puts the application into background, typically when the user switches to a different application. We could also use resume, which is the app comes back up. That's really just, I don't know, that's up to you. But doing it in the pause is definitely more secure, I would say. So whatever comes back is not really of interest, but what we're gonna do once we go to pause, we will use our lock app function that we already got in home. So let's copy this and let's put it in here. And then we will lock our application. The lock app now needs again the modal controller, but we can inject this, no problem. To make the class happy, we need the login page. Okay, we can also import the login page. The rest of this is still the same. Then once the app goes to the background and is opened up, the modal should be shown, and the modal then will handle everything like we did before. The fingerprint is shown, we can't dismiss with the background, we got the small isModal set to true, and that's basically it. Now, of course, we're not able to test these events right here in our browser anymore because Cordova is not installed. So let's see this on the device. All right, so here's the app on my device. And we start with a login screen. Let's try Face ID, and it's me, and I'm logged in. After 2 seconds, just like expected, our modal comes up. I have no chance to kill this modal in any way by typing here on the screen. So I have to unlock the app once again. And I will also now put the app to the background and come back to it, and we see the app is also locked. Now you might say this happens after the timeout, but actually I can prove you that is not the case. So we can even go to the login page, which is actually a small bug that we can still fix. Go to the background and open it up again. And then we see we got the modal as well. So in order to fix this last tiny issue, you can go to your app component once again and simply add the router, the Angular router, and then in our pause event, check if list.router.url is not equal to /login, and only in those cases call the lock app. Because if you're already on the login page, you don't want to lock the app. That doesn't really make any sense. So use the URL where your login page is here and only lock the app if it is not on that page. But that's how you can easily protect your Ionic application with Face ID or Fingerprint, and also trigger it automatically when your app goes to the background, to the pause or resume event, whatever you prefer. I hope you enjoyed this quick win. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed and put a like on the video. And if you want additional great courses and more quick wins, check out myionic.academy.com, the place to help you with everything Ionic. I hope to see you inside. I'll catch you inside the next video. So have a great day and take care.